welcome. This is Sean and Ashley, and you're listening to The Conflict Compass, where we explore the challenges of conflict and the strategies that bring people together. Today we have a special guest, Valerie, who will share their insights and experiences. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. Hi, Val. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, thank you for asking. I have a couple questions. You are a current volunteer mediator. When did you start mediating with Ventura CRI?
Oh my goodness. I've been studying conflict resolution for a few years now. I think it must be maybe a year or two that I have been involved with the Conflict Resolution Institute in their small claims court program.
Thank you. What is your experience and background in mediation?
Well, I was actually first introduced to conflict resolution at CSU Channel Islands in their communications department, but I've also had the opportunity to study at programs at Pepperdine University as well as other nonprofit organizations like CRI, and have also had the ability to serve on CRI's advisory board for youth and schools, which is a really exciting endeavor.
Very nice. What inspired you to become a mediator?
Well, I'd say I'm truly enamored by the ability to use language as a facilitator of growth. I have been a martial arts instructor for over 15 years. I teach yoga. Some things that these things have in common to me is the ability to kind of help antagonize or even just witness positive change. And as a martial arts instructor, I often think a lot about how I have the privilege to do this as an art and not out of necessity. And, my goal for myself as well as all of my students is that I never have to use any of these tools that I practice to, I guess, I say physically negotiate my own safety or my own best interests. So when I think about martial arts, I think of all these different techniques that have been the same for hundreds and hundreds of years. However, mediation for me is an opportunity to really lean into the human condition as I understand it in today's world. And so to be able to study these tools and to have these tools in my toolbox and to help other people with their conflict as well, I see that as a very valuable and a practical thing to be a part of.
That's amazing. Thank you. What do you feel your top two skills are that you use for mediation? And what advice would you give to someone considering training in mediation?
The first two things that come to my mind are active listening and also reframing. It is so easy to, no matter whether it's in a mediation or not, to be listening with the intention to respond, or to be listening and having your own set of ideas ruminating in the back of your head. So having the skill and the practice to continually actively listen to the parties talk about their problems is going to help you stay present and be the best mediator that you can. Also, reframing, being able to reframe the different statements that you hear, or to be able to reframe negative comments into neutral ones to kind of de escalate some of the language that might happen at your mediation table, I think is extremely valuable in a mediation. As far as advice that I might give, or something to consider to people who are thinking about joining the program, is that as much as it is a service and a dynamic dialogue that's happening, between two parties, it's also a very self-reflective practice as well. Like I said, as an individual mediator, being able to work on your own biases or focus on your own listening skills, but also not interjecting yourself within the conversation where the decision-making power is always left in the hands of the parties. So being able to kind of strategically insert yourself or kind of offer yourself as the container, where you allow the parties' problems to really fill that container, and let the solutions to their problems come from themselves and not from you.
Thank you, Val. A little earlier, you mentioned problems. What has been a challenging moment in the courtroom?
Oh, that is a lot. There can be so many different challenges that happen in the courtroom. But that's also one thing that I love about mediation, is that once you get these tools in your toolbox and you start feeling more and more confident utilizing them. In small claims court, for example, we don't get to read really what the cases are about. And so sometimes, we get together with the parties and we just immediately hear from them. And it's just, the ball is rolling from there. So I would say, first off, what comes to my mind is that I remember that when I go to small claims court as a mediator and meet the parties that I am assisting that day, like usually there are 1,000 other places they would rather be than in small claims courts. And there's probably 1,000 other places that they would rather be basically than sitting in front of me about to facilitate the process that I'm trying to facilitate. So I try to acknowledge that ahead of time to kind of help, just acknowledge the situation a little bit. And then, given this, by the time that you're hearing about all of these issues between the parties, they're already at an impasse. And
Right.
and it's also important to remember that if, sometimes if people had conflict resolution skills, or if this was more like standardized like practice, or instruction that was accessible to so many people or mandatory in some ways, they may not make it to small claims court. So not only do people not want to be in front of you, right, they won't don't even want to be in small claims court at all. Chances are they may not even have the conflict resolutions or de-escalation or self-regulation tools that would, allow them to help themselves kind of solve the issue in the first place. And sometimes they've been ruminating and marinating for days, but usually sometimes even weeks or months about this issue. I don't want to say that people are always difficult, because that's not always the case. But sometimes people scream, or sometimes people yell, or sometimes people direct some of their like frustration and emotion at you. And that's why I kind of mentioned before, the reframing and the active listening really helps people feel heard and understood. And once they feel heard and understood, it kind of helps de-escalate them into a place where they feel more collaborative and more open to problem solving with the other person.
Thank you. Can you please explain the benefits of individuals taking this training?
Definitely. I can say, although my experience that I've shared today is in the context of small claims court, this training is truly something that, when you pursue and get more confident with, whether or not you decide to mediate in court, it is one of those practices that will change the way that you see your world moving forward. And anything that you do in any facet of your life, could be at work, it could be at school, it could be at home, even going about my daily life. If I'm listening to an argument, or if I find myself in some kind of dispute, I notice myself like identifying, oh, that's the position, oh,
Mhm.
that's the interest. And I automatically dissect it in that way. And it helps me kind of like be more constructive in the way that I deal with, less desirable situations or uncomfortable conversations. But I can definitely say that anyone could confidently sign up for a training like this and expect it to add value to their life in the long term.
That's very nice, Val. Thank you very much. What are your final thoughts for listeners?
I definitely would recommend learning more about conflict resolution education and different volunteer opportunities. Like I said before, the training in itself is invaluable, and there's so many different ways that you could become involved in your community utilizing the skills, whether it's with CRI or in a different capacity, or even in your workplace. So I would definitely invite you guys to be curious and look into a little more. I don't think that anyone would regret it.
Thank you very much, Valerie, and thank you everyone for joining us today.